All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this may be fairly long-winded, but the weather is not great, so I wanted to do this follow-up video of the G after the dyno with all sorts of results and get all that information out and see if anything's working or better, or what other things I could share and what I learned and how everything is doing. But it is ice and snow and rain all the time right now, so we're just going to sit back and I'll do some filler here and show you what I did to install the brushless pump, and I did a brake upgrade, much needed on my G. So this is the Holley VR1 brushless pump they sent for me to test. I cannot wait to test this and show you guys how it's working. It looks pretty promising. It's very physically small for what it is. They say it flows 640 lph. So the pump I was removing was an AEM 320. So it's basically two of those. And the really neat thing about it is it's brushless and it has a speed controller and it can run two speeds. And you can trigger that speed controller very easily with the Holley or like a Hobbs switch or something else. So it'll flow 320 and then there's a demand and you can turn it up. So what's nice about that is it's one pump, it's small, and you can change the flow rate so you don't always have... See, the issue now is pumps can flow so much that they can easily overrun regulator systems. Also, a car like this that has the regulator in the tank and it's basically returnless, quote unquote, there's a lot of things like this where putting a big pump in and or too many or staged ones just doesn't work out. It's not what you'd expect. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of injector I get back. I'll show some of the details of how I installed it. I was hoping I wouldn't have to cut my basket at all, but that's not the way this worked out. Had to cut up my basket a little bit to make it fit. It was just too tall of a pump. I guess the tank is so short on this car that the extra inch or so in length that I needed was bottoming out the basket, and you couldn't even get the bolts in the basket. It was holding the basket open on the top of the tank about an inch. So couldn't get away with that, but we're going to give it a whirl and try it anyway and see how it does. So you can see I had to butcher the bottom out pretty good because of when you install this, the pump needs to swing around for you to get the gas gauge installed correctly. So I had to do a little bit of cutting so I could just swing that in the position with the gas level arm at the same time to install it. So there's the full height, and then when you install it, it swings down out of the way. Like I said, it was just too long, and early on you can see I installed the barb fitting. That's because I could not slide the pump directly in. And here is a really neat product I wanted to actually highlight. Mike from Monkey Fab sent me these in one of the care packages, and I have been using them on things, and I don't think I showed them the last time I did, but they are incredible, and I wanted to show people how awesome they are if you're doing something like this. See, the fuel pump access door is inside my car, so drilling holes and not getting it sealed correctly just makes the interior smell like fuel. So he sells these awesome electronics bulkheads. They come in plastic, and this one was metal, and they have a rubber O-ring on the bottom, and you can affix them to like this plastic entryway to the pump. And then it has like a rubber collapsible skirt, and it has an interesting design with that top piece where once you pass the wires through, if you continue to tighten the top crown piece, it'll just keep pinching the rubber skirt tighter and tighter around the wires until you basically, I mean, I wonder if it's waterproof. It's pulling it so tight. At some point, I don't want to cut the wires or whatever, but I made it extremely snug, and there is zero fuel smell from the hat after letting the car sit for long enough to know if there's no fuel smell. Obviously, once you spill all that stuff all over, you're not going to be able to tell. So that's extremely nice. Wanted to show you guys that for sure and talk about it. We got the brushless pump in, and the focus on here. So that's 59 pounds. So it's supposed to be 58. So 59 is basically exactly what it should be. And then since this pump has a 2-speed controller, if I take the connector off, it goes to 76 on high speed. So you can see why you don't want that much. So really neat highlight here is that since I put the Terminator on and I've been logging fuel pressure, my fuel pressure drops from 58 to about 42, and my injector duty cycle goes over 100 close to redline. Like it's semi-safe because of its ethanol, but I cannot get any richer than a 12 air fuel, and I obviously can't add any power, and I have no cushion right now because the pump is completely maxed out. The fuel pressure drops to 42 pounds. It doesn't go any lower than that, which was interesting to me. I thought fuel pressure would continue to fall, but it does have a booster pump on it, and it is running at like 18 or 19 volts. So that's one of the reasons why it can kind of hang on. So like I wanted to show before, what's really neat about this system is it has a built-in controller, and it can run at 50% duty cycle or 100. So you can see at 50% duty cycle, it's running the correct pressure, 58 pounds, and it's not overrunning the regulator. So when you run this pump at full speed, even at, the car isn't running, so battery voltage was probably like 12 or 11.8 volts or something like that. It might have even been on the screen. The really neat thing is you can see it's overrunning the regulator. So it's pumping more pressure up to the rail than it can bypass. So that's just a neat experiment that obviously that's happening is a good thing. It's not great if you want to do that all the time, but it was a simple test to see how much more it would flow. It obviously overruns the regulator with double the fuel amount. What is also interesting is you can hear how quiet the pump is. It's extremely quiet for 640 lph. And that's obviously nice for some people that have quiet cars. This car, you would hear the fuel pump screaming in the car all the time. So I can't wait to see how much injector I get back. I can't wait to see what my pressure looks like, blah, 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 all of the above. So now we will move on to the brake upgrade. So this car, the brakes were pretty shot when I bought it. They weren't anything spectacular, and to no fault of the other owner. They're just old and used up quite a bit. I'm sure he had tons of fun. These rotors, I cannot remember if they were warped when I bought it. It doesn't really matter. I'm not like pointing fingers at the poor guy. So after I tripled the horsepower in this car, from 140 and 160 mile an hour slowdowns, even lightly touching the pedal, tons of room to slow down. There was tons of brake rotor vibration. They're just warped. They're completely done. So I was always like, well, I'm not just going to do pads. I'm not just going to do rotors. I think it's kind of dumb to upgrade, try to do pads or whatnot on the stock brakes. This is a base model G. It doesn't have the Brembos. I was like, I'll just buy the Brembo upgrade package. It can't be that bad. Long story short, my friend ended up giving me Brembo calipers. I traded him a camshaft and some other stuff for Brembo calipers off of a Genesis coupe of some sort, and I was going to retrofit them, and I had asked about it, and a gentleman on Sloppy was like, well, I sell the entire literal bolt-on GT35, not GT35, listen to me, turbos. He sells the G35 Brembo upgrade, and it comes with all the fittings you need: rotors, calipers, brake pads, the banjo fitting that's extended, so I guess the traditional banjo doesn't fit from the regular brakes. There's a whole thing there. So it comes with all those pieces, and it was only like $299. I thought it was an incredible deal. You get all the pieces. I don't have to worry about anything. I bolt them on, I bleed them, and I have more caliper. I have, hopefully, if I'm doing a bunch of slowdowns from high speed, I have repeatability. People right away were jumping down my throat about not having good tires on the car. I'm like, whatever, guys. It doesn't have drag radials in the back either. Let me have some fun, please. Anyway, you're all experts. I know you all road race some crazy cars like Porsches and stuff like that. Leave me alone. Why are people upset that I'm upgrading my brakes on a car? It boggles my mind. Anyway, people are never happy. But I'm pretty happy with these. I haven't had opportunity to completely bleed them. I'm definitely going to have somebody help me just do the final bleed on them. I did a little bit of a bleed with, if you ever use one of those vacuum cans, if you swap the hoses around and put some fresh fluid in it, when you pump the pedal, it pumps fluid in both directions. It's like a cheap, easy way to get fluid in both directions and try not to get air in. So I have some brakes, but they're definitely not as good as they could be if I just bled them correctly with someone else helping me. Just haven't gotten there yet. So it's just nice to see all the new brake hardware finally on the car, fuel pump on the car. Can't wait to get it on the dyno and see what kind of power I make with the Holley. Also, for fun, I think I'm going to get a couple bags of ice, and I'm just going to ice down the blower reservoir. I've never done it. I've always driven the car to the dyno hot and put it on the dyno and made good power with the blower and the engine completely hot. So I think it would be neat in the middle of winter to do what everybody else does and play the game with the extremely cold inlet temperatures, ice the blower, ice the tank, start the car with fairly cold coolant temperature, barely warm it up, and smack it after running ice cold water through the blower and intercooler and everything else. So it would be neat to see like the absolute best result if there is much of a gain. I know there usually is with a blower car like this because they're so heat sensitive. If you take your time and really get the thing cold, you are going to get a good horsepower number. So that's what I'm interested in seeing. I'm also interested in comparing apples to apples dyno pulls with the stock computer versus the Holley just to see if it makes more power. I've run into it before where we have pretty much the same tune-up in and we make more power with a standalone. There's a lot of obvious reasons for that, but curious to see if it keeps happening. So, all of that said, I hope you guys like this quick update. Hopefully the next one is me later this week driving the G to the dyno and smashing some power out of it, going for best results, and then I'll go over the logs from prior, losing fuel pressure and showing injector duty cycle, to hopefully seeing, I can't imagine the fuel flow won't be better with this pump, but obviously that's to be seen. I will share the results, good or bad, let you know what I think, go from there. So enjoy. Let me know if you guys have questions. I bought the brake upgrade from WHP Performance. I'd like to throw that out there. Got everything from that guy. It all came in less than a week. I got all my pieces. Everything was happy. Bolted it on in seconds. Very pleased with it. So that's all that. Again, I'm repeating myself, but ask some questions. Let me know what you want to see next with the car. Again, I stated it before. I'll say it again. I'd like to have some overhead for some nitrous. That's my main goal here. So hopefully we get it. Hopefully we can do that. Spray on top of the blower. It's always a good time.